What is up, Ute Nation? How we all feeling after week one? Me personally, I feel fantastic. It's always great to get a big opening win in front of the home crowd with having a big name SEC school come in. I know Florida is not in their heyday at this time, but they're still an SEC caliber opponent, and they got us last year. So really happy to get that victory this week and go to 1-0. It's a great start. There's huge aspirations for this season. So being 1-0 is a good thing. For more on that game breakdown, check out the channel. We have a post-game recap recorded there. Just make sure to like and share these videos as well as subscribing to the channel for future content. So we go into Waco next week, our first road test. A lot of people were pretty worried about this game, and rightfully so. We still can't we still can't believe that we're just going to go walk in and trounce them, even after what we saw this week when Baylor got beat by Texas State. So they're probably going to be come out a different team. They're going to have motivation. Do I think they're that good? No, I don't. After watching that, and we're going to kind of break down some of this. They have some severe gaps that they need to get closed up and shored up on that team before I think they can really start becoming a good team. Because they do have talent, but when you lose the game in the trenches to a G5 school, that's a tough start. So. What I kind of want to talk about is I just want to go into some storylines and talk about Baylor more than anything and maybe how we can compare a little bit. As mentioned, they lost 42-31 at home to a G5 school in Texas State. That Texas State team was 2-6 last year in the Sun Belt, 4-8 overall in 2022. So they were a weak team last year, much better team this year. They got the coach that transferred out of Incarnate Word last year, took them very, very deep into the FCS playoffs. And he's kind of a rising star, moving his way up the ranks. And he had his team ready to play. I mean, it was apparent. They have some talent on that team, and I think they'll do much better in the Sun Belt Conference this year. With that said, you can't lose like that at home on your first game if you're a Baylor Bears team. So especially the fact that they got destroyed in the trenches, both offensive and defensively. Mainly the O-line. It looked very bad. They're down. They're down a lot of talent that they had last year. It's kind of a rebuilt, renewed offensive line. 5 of their best players from last year are gone, including 3 all Big 12 offensive linemen and the offensive lineman of the year in the Big 12 at center. So they did receive 2 transfers from BYU, the Barrington brothers. Clark Barrington, he's a preseason All-American this year at center. He's going to be the leader of this offensive line, so he's going to have to rally the troops and figure out what went wrong. I think he has 40 career starts behind him. There's 21 career starts in the remaining 4 starting offensive linemen for this group. So, I just don't see the offensive line shoring up in 6 days. It's going to be a tall task to really improve in 6 days. The other thing is Texas State was in the backfield this entire game. They stuffed the run game. Baylor showed to have, 100 and something rushing yards, but two of those runs were big runs, a 32 and a 31 yarder. So outside of that, they only had, actually with that included, they had 3.4 yards per carry. So outside of those 2 big runs, they did nothing in the running game. So they primarily just ran, one back. I think he had 16 carries. He had 16 carries for 79 yards. So that's Dominic Richardson. So they didn't really try to run the ball much. But I think because they couldn't, they struggled having that defensive front in their face the entire game. It also just beat the heck out of Blake Shapen, who played a pretty dang good game. He had a high QBR and a pretty high PFF grade. He didn't play terrible, but when you have that kind of pressure in your face the entire game, you have an uphill battle. He got hurt. It looked like it sounds like he's got a MCL sprain, and as of about half an hour ago, Dave Aranda came out and said that he's going to be missing 2 to 3 weeks. So now Baylor's down to their backup quarterback, who is Sawyer Robertson. This was a highly recruited kid out of Lubbock, Texas. He went to Coronado High, put up some big numbers there. Recruited by Mike Leach to go to Mississippi State. He's a redshirt sophomore. He opted to transfer to Baylor this year. And the Baylor faithful are really wanting to see him play. He's a athletic, tall kid with a live arm, and he can scramble a little bit. He had one of the longer runs of the game. He had a 31-yarder. So he can move, but with this offensive line and this against this team, it's a tall ask to get this kid prepared and hoping he can go out there and try to dominate this Utah defense that's just absolutely loaded this year. I kind of want to speak on that just a little bit. The Utah defensive front was great last week. Everyone saw it, but we were missing two of our key position players up front in Junior Tafuna, who's the leader, as well as Samote Pepa, who's our biggest D tackle. They both Pepa really played well towards the end of the year last year, but they're both just big physical guys. Tafuna, we all know about him. He's got a ton of potential. He kind of had an off year last year, but I don't take much. I'm not going to really take much on that. He was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year his first year, in I think 2021. And word on the street, he is vastly improved in this offseason. In spring ball into fall camp. Unfortunately, he got banged up a little bit in fall camp. It sounds like a lower leg or ankle injury. I don't really know exactly what it was, but I know that he was a game time decision leading into this. So I believe he'll play. There's 10 days between these two games since we played on a Thursday opener. And Pepa, he was spotted with basically his hand clubbed up. He might have broke a bone in his hand or something. I imagine he'll play also. Yeah, I think he was also a game time decision, and probably just giving him that extra week will be beneficial, and it's going to give our defensive front just a ton more depth because the guys we have there already. We talked about them last week, but they played amazing. They're going to continue to put a ton of pressure on quarterbacks and being able to stop these teams from running the ball. 13 yards against Florida is absolutely fantastic. Which a lot of that was from having minus 29 yards with sacks, since quarterback sacks are accounted for in that. But I just don't see Baylor doing much. They didn't run the ball well against Texas State's defensive front. They just really didn't do a lot offensively, but besides Shapen making some plays and hitting some of those wide receivers. I think he had 300. Shapen had 303 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. He played well with pressure in his face. Sawyer Robertson he came in for a little bit after Shapen initially got hurt. He had went 6 for 12 with 113 yards and 1 interception. If you all remember, that interception was in the end zone towards the end of the game that basically sealed this game. Not that it wasn't already. They were up, and it was pretty late in the ball game. That just put the final bow on it. You know, there's something also to be said about Aranda putting Shapen back in the game after he was already hurt and had come out of the game. You know, with a sprained MCL. They put a big brace, it looked like, and, you know, big wrap on his leg and put him back in. So, you know, I'm kind of questioning, you know, what does that say about what they think of this backup quarterback? I know there's a ton of talent that this kid possesses, but maybe he's just not ready. He just hasn't been in the program and run this offense long enough. I really don't know. It was questionable, to say the least. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I think Utah's going to go into this game and roll. You know, I didn't think that before watching Baylor in game one. I thought it was going to be a very, very close, tough, physical game. The one thing Baylor has going for them is that, you know, these Utah teams typically don't like these early, 11 a.m., 10 a.m. Mountain Time games. It's going to be hot. We'll just have to see how this team is prepared for that. I just, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. Hopefully the Baylor faithful come out. I'm sure they're a little down after last week. I don't know how loud that stadium's going to get for an 11 a.m. kickoff game after taking the loss last week. But, with Utah coming into town, I'm sure the place will be packed. So that'll be another thing that Utah has to overcome is some crowd noise. So switching gears a little bit and talking about the Baylor defense, TJ Finley, who's the quarterback for Texas State, went 22 of 30, 298 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a QBR of 96.2 that game. He looked incredible. He escaped some pressure, specifically on that one touchdown where it looked like he was bottled up, and magically got out of that and threw a dart to the wide receiver coming out of the backfield. It might have been it was either a slot receiver or running back, if I remember right. Kind of a wheel route out of the backfield once he got bottled up. But he played really well. They had some playmakers offensively, and what I really noticed was, the Baylor secondary was lost in coverage throughout that entire game. They seemed to really struggle. There was miscommunication between the safety units as well as the corner units. Left a lot of guys open, and on top of that, there were just several times where they got straight up beat. So, I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback again for Utah. That's going to be the question of the week until Cam is officially back and in action. I know he's actually cleared for full practice, including 11 on 11 drills. So hopefully, if he gets the medical clearance, I'm one of the few in the Utah fandom that thinks he needs to go. We need to have this championship mindset. We've, the Pac-12 championship is great. We've been there the last 4 years, technically. We've won it the last 2, but why not create a championship culture and put your best 11 out there on offense every single game? If he's cleared to play, that basically means, if he's medically cleared, it basically means that he's in no greater risk of re-injury than he was prior to him getting injured when he was healthy. So, let's put him in there. If he's cleared, obviously, but I think we put him in there. It'll get him those much needed reps and preparation for the Pac-12 conference play in week 4 against UCLA. So I'm hoping that happens. It's definitely steps in the right direction with him getting cleared for full practice, no limitations. Outside of that, if he doesn't go, I'm a big fan of keeping Bryson Barnes in the game. I think he has better arm talent. We discussed this, in our post game recap. I do think that Nate Johnson could be a big factor in this game. I watched TJ Finley, take a read option, and it was about I think it was about a 30-yard touchdown run on that. And that it sets up perfect for what Nate Johnson can do with his speed and athleticism. So I was all about keeping Barnes in, and until I watched some things in that game, and yeah, I'm good with rotating them in again. I thought it hurt the rhythm of the game, of the offense with Barnes at the helm, switching them series after series. But I think we can do it again this game if Cam doesn't go. Give those guys some reps, put that defense to a test, because they both have totally different skill sets. The Baylor defensive line really didn't look great either. They were able to be pushed around in the trenches, and Texas State was able to capitalize on some of that. With Utah's offensive line being what they are, and the running back room being what it is, I could see Utah rushing for 350, 400 yards this game. I don't necessarily think that'll be the case. I think we'll continue focusing on our passing game, especially if we get up big. Obviously, we're going to be running the ball more, but I think early we're going to be focused on the passing game. We're going to try to establish that run to open up the passing game a little bit, but yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. I just think there's a lot of weaknesses, both offensively and defensively, for Baylor. So I'm excited for this game to happen. I'll be there in person. I'll be tailgating with the fans before and after the game, since it's 11 a.m. kickoff Central. Really excited about that. I actually have family. My parents live in Waco, and my sister, my brother-in-law, they also live in Waco. So it'll be fun. I got my brother flying in from Salt Lake to join. It's gonna be a great weekend of Utah football, and just excited to be able to make this trip over there. I'm about 3.5 hours or so from Waco, and it's nice to be able to make some road games finally, besides the Alamo Bowl, without having to take a flight. But I'm excited. Drop your comments in there. What do you think? What are your predictions of how this game will go? I don't know. I think I mentioned this, but I can't remember if I did earlier. Utah opened at -6 on the gambling odds for this game. I went ahead and took that as quickly as I possibly could. And if you don't, the line's going to move. I have a feeling this thing's going to shoot in Utah's favor quickly, especially with the announcement of Shapen being out for the game. So I haven't looked at what the odds are currently, but in my opinion, Utah is going to win by 3 scores or more. I think they're really going to be able to expose some of the deficiencies we saw, and that's my prediction. It's going to be, probably another fairly low scoring game if Cam doesn't play. So kind of looking at about 28-7 maybe, maybe 31-10, kind of that range. It's going to be very tough for Baylor and this backup quarterback to really compete, I have a feeling. But yeah, go ahead, drop some comments in. Let us know what you think. Like and share. We're going to continue doing these videos throughout the college football season, breaking down each new team that Utah plays. But as always, we like to end these with "Go Utes."